Hey guys, Jeff here, and today I want to talk to you about cutaway locks. Many of us, when we get into lock sport, want to be able to see what's going on inside, and so a lot of us dabble with cutaway locks. My first one, I did it kind of like the Sparrow's cutaways, where you have this window here. Now, all I did was I removed the pins and the springs from here, and I took a large file, just the size that I wanted, and just went to town, kept going across until all of these chambers were visible. Now, I did have to go through and kind of clear out the debris, because anytime you cut through like this, there's going to be debris, there's going to be loose parts on the side that need cleaned up. This works pretty well. I kind of wish I had done it on the other side, just because of the way that I pick. I have a tendency to go that way, which means especially if I was going to show on camera or anything, it'd be nice if it was right there. So think about what direction you prefer to pick. So with this kind of window, it does only show you has the pins made it up to the shear line or not. So it doesn't give you a whole lot of information, but it's not a bad way to start. Pretty easy to do. The next thing that I did is more of what we often see, the stereotypical cutaway where you have a groove for each chamber. A couple things. First off, when you do this, you need to think about how the core is held in. This core is held in with one of those retaining pins. Those retaining pins mean that you have a hole that runs all the way through here for your spring and your pin. If I were going to do this again, I would rather do it with one of these that has the clip on the back, so that way there wouldn't be anything in the way when I'm cutting through. This one was also an experiment, because I was trying to decide what is the best way to cut these in. Most people I know will either just use a Dremel cutoff wheel or a hacksaw, but I just wanted to know what was best. So for these front three cuts, I started with the Dremel, which gives you that size there. Pretty narrow. It's hard to really see what's going on in there. So for the front one, I went to town using a thin file and then a little thicker to try to widen this out enough that I could see. And let me tell you, that takes a long time. For the middle one, I had this harebrained idea, and I actually stacked two discs together on here just to give me a little extra thickness. And when I did that, it gives a nice open gap to see into. I don't like the fact that the way the discs were wearing away, you can kind of see there it gives this V groove instead of the nice square grooves of some of the others. At the other end, I used the hacksaw, which gave me this one here, but then to try widening it, I took the hacksaw. I can't remember where I saw this trick, but I put two blades on it, onto the pins there, and used that instead. Now, that was quicker than the Dremel, and additionally, I felt like it was just a cleaner, straighter cut, a lot more like what I was looking for. This double hacksaw blade is my favorite, and I'm probably going to go back and clean up at least these two guys that are still pretty skinny using that, so I can more clearly see what's going on with the pins here. So that's just my experience with it, so that way you can avoid having to go through all that hassle. Now again, like I said with the other one, think about the direction that you prefer to pick. I think most of us go clockwise, especially since a lot of padlocks do that. So if that's the case, you might want to do your cutaways over here, especially if you're right-handed, so you can go through and you can see what's going on. As you can see from me doing them on the right-hand side, it means that I have to completely turn things around, unless, of course, maybe I'm going to pick European style, and then I could see what's going on with the pins if my thumb wasn't covering it up. So think about the direction you're going to pick when you decide what side to put these on. Of course, if I had put these grooves on the other side. I could have also avoided the whole issue with that pin. The last kind of cutaway, which is not one that I feel like is often shown, and I want to thank Potty314, and I'm going to include his video that inspired me down in the description below, but it was this one, a top cutaway. Now this one doesn't so much show you what's going on, but this is for the beginners out there. When we talk about trying to locate the pins and feel the pin that's binding, that can be really hard when someone's trying to reach inside. They're not sure if they're on the pin and trying to figure out what that feels like. So what Potty314 had done was he took a lock, ground down the top. So now, and of course this is stuck with doing it Euro style, but now you can see pretty clearly there the 3 pins, 1, 2, 3, and you have clear access to run through them, seeing whether or not there's any resistance, whether or not they spring back up. You can tell exactly when you're on the pin. So it's definitely more about learning the skill than it is about learning the feel. But when you start learning what it feels like for them to bind, that's going to help you learn to do it all blind instead. And for this one, I started off with a right angle grinder just because there was so much metal I wanted to remove. But I finished this again with that large file. I just went, there we go, got it. You do have to make sure you don't overturn this, because with the gap there, the pins can come out of the Bible if we turn this too far. Additionally, these pins could fall right out the top, so I never go more than 90 degrees on this. But after I started this with a grinder, I again went to the big file, going across. The guide that I used for this is that there is, you can barely see it, but right here there's some warding that's actually holding the pins in. And I tried to get as close as I could to that warding, so there was something holding the pins in, but I had pretty straight access to it. So there you go. 3 different types of cutaways, at least for kick cylinders. Each of them showing things a little bit differently and made a little bit differently. So no matter what tools you have, if you want to make a cutaway, you can, I'm sure, you can complete one of these. That's now out of focus. If you've made a cutaway, I'd love to hear your experience with it. Let me know what your preferred tools and your preferred style is, and I will talk to you later.